Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Jenny Aiello, and this is With Love, Jenny, a podcast where we meet ourselves right in the heart of our vulnerability and authenticity. In this sacred space where it's just you and I dive into real life, rich with wisdom and opportunities for deep healing. I explore what it means to truly connect to ourselves, to each other, and to something much greater than us all. In each podcast, I like to meet life right where it touches us most, in our tenderness, in our truth, in our struggles and our strength. So wherever you are on your journey, or whatever it is that you're carrying, no matter how light or heavy, just know I'm so grateful that you're here with me today. So take a deep breath, settle in, and let's begin today's episode. Hello, and welcome to this episode of With Love, Jenny. Well, full disclosure here. One of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast is to talk about everyday problems, everyday moments that bring challenges and rewards, and the ones that bring hardship and heartbreak. We talk about fun things and we talk about hard things here because that's what life is. And this particular episode, as a matter of fact, it's the first of 3 episodes that's very, very near to my heart. And it's a topic that I have most wanted to cover in this podcast and haven't yet. So today we are diving into something so important and so tender. And I hope you will listen, because if you are one of the lucky ones and this doesn't pertain to you, I would expect you would know someone in your family or a family member who knows someone that raising your awareness to this particular topic is going to be very helpful to them, if not you. So it might be hard to listen to at times, and I'm going to invite you to do hard things and listen, because your awareness and your informed mind needs to know about this. This is something that would be hard to imagine. It's hard for me to fathom, and it's something that's happening more frequently than we want to acknowledge. The topic for these next 3 episodes is going into mental health disorders, coupled with addiction and substance use disorders. It's going into suicide, overdose deaths, and grief. We have a guest today. She is going to be with us for 3 episodes. She's a very dear friend of mine that I've known for decades. She's one of the most beautiful souls you will ever meet. Dawn Lohr is, for the first time, I believe, sharing this whole story in a public format because she's committed to helping others by raising awareness and letting her story help others. She hopes to erase the stigma that comes with mental health and empower you to know how to help someone else who's going through a journey such as this. It's also near and dear to my heart because our family has gone through a struggle with addiction and mental health disorders. It is a dark path to walk down. It is very difficult to balance life when life keeps going, and it's a heavy burden and a heavy, scary journey that you're taking and carrying. It's not easy. And I don't think there's really anything we could do to prepare you for what that journey can be like. Our son, who struggled with addiction, is in recovery and is doing well. Dawn's son, who also experienced, and you'll hear her story with that, the combination, it's called a dual diagnosis of substance use coupled with mental health disorders. And she experienced every mother's worst fear and worst nightmare. She lost her son, John, to suicide. It's hard for me to say that out loud right now, but Dawn is here. Take a deep breath, Dawn. Saying it out loud makes it hard and real. You never get over it, but she is here to talk about it. We're going to start by talking about how his journey began and how these mental health challenges, brain injury, and diagnoses unfolded in this episode. And then we're going to talk about just the suicidal part of his journey and his death and how prevalent that is. I have statistics, but this show today is not about statistics. It's about a story. And this is her story and her son. So, Dawn, thank you for your courage. It's okay to have emotions while Kristen and I cry sometimes on our shows. And you get to be real here, but thank you for the courage to come and tell us this story and help our little podcast audience maybe have more awareness and compassion for people going through something like this. So welcome. And I'm going to let you start by just tell us a little bit about where this all began for you and a little bit more, because you're a mother of 4.
Yes.
He was one of 4. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Jenny. Thank you for having me, Kristen. It's great to be here. And thank you, Jenny, for sharing that and your kind words about me. I appreciate that too. Yeah, so I have 4 children. My oldest, being 30, lives in Korea. I do have my daughter still living with me. She's 24. And my youngest is 22, just graduated from college and is starting his journey out in the world. And John would have been 26 this year. He did pass in November, and his story began, he was a full of life little boy, loved playing soccer. He was the goalie and quickly became very, very good. And of course, at every tournament, every game, he was in the goal and just loving every minute of it. Then about just shy of 12, he took a hard hit on the field that left him unconscious, and we had to follow him, and they wouldn't even let us as parents in the ambulance, and we had to follow to the Greenville Medical Center, and they did the CAT scan, they did everything, and they gave you the basic, no practice, no games, no activity for 2 weeks, that kind of thing. And of course we were going to stick to that as his parents. But I would say that would have been the spring. The following fall, he was in middle school, and we chose a specific school for him that was separate from where the bus would take him. So his father would take him to school and pick him up every single day. And the one day he went to pick him up, he wasn't there. And, they immediately ran the tapes of the school, and they saw that he had left school at 10 a.m. How no teachers mentioned this the rest of the day was a little beyond me. And so I had to sit vigil at our home. His father remained at the school, and his coaches were all super supportive. And one was at the school, one was looking around for him. They did find him actually at the soccer fields later that evening. And there was just something in I call it my mom's spidey sense, that I'm like, I honestly think it had to do with the concussion. I mean, I think there's something going on. I didn't start using terms of depression or anything like that, but I'm like, something's affecting my son. So we did take him to therapy, but we started with the basics. Now, they did not put him on anything at that point, but the next couple of years, I would notice his moods. I would encourage, let's go back to therapy, those types of things. So that fall, he would have been just shy of turning 13. So this kind of went on and off, but yet he was still very good in school. He was still active in soccer. He just continued, and as a mother of 4, I'm, running around everywhere, but just they're always aware. The fall of his junior year in high school, he went to a Halloween party and came back, and I noticed it didn't seem like he had been drinking, but I could tell something was off, like he wasn't himself. I found Xanax pills the next day in his bag and had that conversation, discussed going back to therapy. I had lined that up. It took a little while for me to find the right person, so I was going to start him in the new year. That would have been, so it was a senior year. So so now we're in the spring semester of his senior year, and I heard a noise in my home, woke me up in the night, and he had attempted to use a rope over our banister that hung over to the first floor, but you could see over, and I screaming run down the stairs to grab a chair to help him. And I don't know how he did it, because I saw his arms by his side, but somehow, I don't know if me screaming snapped him out of it, but he had somehow lifted himself up and pulled himself out, because the rope was still there on the banister, but he had fallen to the floor. We took him to the hospital downtown Charleston and admitted him to the juvenile psychiatric unit. And that began So, I mean, again, like his journey had begun before, but this now is like in my mind, I'm like, this is serious. This is intense. We immediately started him on different antidepressive medications. They tried different things to kind of figure out the right thing, therapy. And of course, he's fighting this all the way. But the medication was starting to help him. Like he was starting to be more, he finished out his senior year, he was still playing soccer. He got accepted to Clemson. And so he was just excited to go to school and he was ready to go. And all the while in the back of my mind as a mom, I'm like, I don't know if he's ready for this, but he was going with, friends that he knew from our area to the college together. And I thought just having that camaraderie, the people that he knew, I was like, all right, I got to give him a chance because I can't hold him back from his life. 2 months in, we got a call that he actually had called 911. He had taken LSD this time, along with Xanax and pot. And so with triple drugs in his system, they sent him to a behavioral place nearby. And that's when I first realized, having the first experience of in the hospital near here, I'm not saying I was comfortable with it in any way, shape, or form, but I'm like, okay, we'll start here. But when I saw this other facility, I was appalled. Like it was horrific. And I'm like, this is where they send people that need help. So that was when I dug down deep and I'm like, okay, I've got to start to find a place for my son to heal. And because he had taken the substances that he did, they thought it was more of an addiction, even though he had had the prior suicide attempt that year. Both were there, but they felt that this was the one they needed to address first. So I found a place and Jenny, I can share it. It was Red Oak Recovery in Asheville, North Carolina. And they did a more of a wilderness type approach where they teach them to, learn how to camp on their own and build a fire and all these things. And I remember him saying to me, and this is not funny, but he's like, I am not a Boy Scout. And he was pissed. He was so mad at me and his father for sending him there. But we're like, I mean, these are the consequences. Like we have, you need help. A week later, the director called me and said, well, we're come to realize that because of the suicide attempts, he's got more mental health issues than this. And I'm like, what? So they're now telling me I have to get my son out of a place that I just, literally had to talk him into. I had to, keep digging through tons of places. I'm calling everywhere. And the resources are just very slim. The next place I found was Pasadena Villa, and they do an inpatient and an outpatient with equine therapy. This was a complete 360 from the other place. I mean, I could see where that could help people that just had substance abuse. Yes, I could see that would make a huge difference. For him, he needed a different, path. So this place, when I went there was a child playing piano in the lobby. They ate at a huge farm table, fresh food served to the table. I remember his dad saying, I have no idea how we're going to pay for this at all. He's like, insurance barely covers this. But I'm like, I don't care. This is where he's going. And he was there for several months. It helped set the bar for him, where he kind of started to understand that he does need more care. He's got to really continue to take his medication. He was seeing the therapist at that time. And as I shared with Jenny before I popped on here, sometimes he would put his toe in the water and say, okay, I'll play along and take this medication or go see the therapist, which lasted a couple times. This time he maybe went up to his knees. He's like, okay, I'll do a little bit more. I'll continue. So that his age would have been going into when he was he's coming up to be 19. I'm just trying to get all okay. So that year he did stay with his father quite a bit. We had divorced. We lived in the same area, but his dad was home more because his job kept him at home. And as parents, you hate the idea of having to be a babysitter for your child or young adult. But we felt that was the way, without having to put him in an institution, that we could support him and continue with his treatment. And continued that for about a year and a half. Well, I guess a full year, a little bit over a year. So now we're in February of the following year. I got a call from work. Allison, my daughter, was home, and she said, she's like, I think John's taken something. He's trashing the house. It is a complete disaster. And he had gotten LSD sent. I did not know that these things existed. like the dark underground world. And I don't know, he used Bitcoin to order these. I have no idea. Like all that stuff started to
show up.
Yep. So we sent him to a short-term facility again. Same process, same thing. Back home with his dad, summer hits, and it's 2 days before the 4th of July. I had invited him to a picnic at our home. He said, no, Mom, I'm okay. I'm going to stay here. Because I think the 4th of July fell like in the middle of like Tuesday or something. And I was doing it on the weekend. And I mean, his dad didn't stay with him 24/7. I mean, he did go out, and he went out with a couple of friends to a small concert, not very far. But when he came back, John was gone. He had taken the car, and he had parked the car. We got a call later that, like, we called everywhere trying to find him. And we got a call from the hospital that he had jumped to the Charleston Bridge and had survived. I actually went to pick up his dad because he'd taken Uber home from a few drinks he's like, I can't drive. And I'm like, that's fine. I'll take you to the hospital. He fractured his collarbone when he hit the water. But I guess at one point, he shared this with me over the years, that at one point he realized he wanted to live. So he started swimming, half swimming because his shoulder was broken, half swimming with one arm, half floating. And he was able to float to the Yorktown on the Mount Pleasant side. There's a big USS Yorktown ship that sits there. It's been sitting there for years that you can go and tour. But of course, it was closed at night. There was a dock nearby, and he got as far as to pull himself up on the dock, but he couldn't lift himself up. And he started crying for help. A young man and his new fiance, he had just asked her, were walking, heard him crying, and helped rescue him. And that's how they got him. They got him to the hospital. And I call him my angel, or John's angel, because they literally had the same first and middle name.
Wow. Yeah.
He had to go to they called it the STICU. So he was in trauma ICU. His creatine levels, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, the lactate acid, because of the adrenaline hit, and I guess his body trying to, recover, having that hit and the water and everything, a level, I think we're supposed to have like a 1 or 2. His was 14. Oh, wow. And it could cause liver failure and all kinds of different things. And they were going to run the tests again. So they asked us to wait, to see. So we were there for a couple hours. And when we got the results back, they didn't do anything other than started giving him fluids. But somehow his body miraculously adjusted, and it was down to a 3. They had to keep him there for physical observation for 2 weeks. And at that point, then after he healed, they sent him back to the same unit he was before, but actually a floor up, because now he's an adult. Mm-hmm. At that point, we continued. And I've been beating myself up for a bunch of things, but we did do the electric shock treatment because I had no else. At that point, I was beside myself. And I did research, and we both did. And I honestly don't know if that helped or hurt. I have no idea. He did seem to do better in the sense of he was more receptive to the therapy after that. He was, the medicine seemed to be helping him more. He was sleeping better. And then Jenny had shared with me what her son was going through, the Amen Clinic. And I've been talking to John about it for quite some time. I'm like, let's figure out what's going on with your brain. I'm willing to pay for this. Let's go down there and find out. So there's one in California, but the closer one here is, I think there's another one too, Jenny, in DC. Maybe there's 3, yep. But the closer one, the one I went to, we went to Atlanta. Mm-hmm. We had a great front end of the trip. We were talking. He was seeming more like himself. We did the scans there, and they did sit down and explain to him that, yes, the concussion had caused the part of his brain, the damage to the part of the brain that does affect suicidal tendencies, depression, and other cognitive issues that can come out of that. He took it like somebody had told him, you got a D on your test. I mean, like he was like, okay. And I was like, I thought he would be, like, for me, it was like, okay, that's like an understanding of what's going on. And now let's move to the next step and move forward. They do have, yes, again, they have their supplements that they created, but brain health is what he kept talking to John about, is that we've got to heal your brain. And there's, omega-3 is a small part of that, but there's a bunch of other different types of things that can support in a healthy way. But I'm very distraught that this man also said that there was new hallucinogenic therapies that were coming out, but in a controlled, he did say that, I'm not faulting him but in a controlled situation that those things can also help with, but that's more of the therapy side. It wasn't the healing of the brain. But he heard that and he's like, well, guess I've been doing that, right? And when I tried to talk with him in the car ride on the way home, he stopped me. He said, no, we stopped to get food. And he said, okay, Mom, I'm done. He took his bag and he took off. And he took his own bus back home. He then proceeded to take journey across the country. And he had safe places to land. He did see my mother in Arizona, and then went out to California. And I'm going to pause there.
Let me pause for a minute, because so many things about your story, right? And the questions that maybe don't have answers. He had this brain injury, and then he started having symptoms that you don't know occurred from just the brain injury, or if there was already something else at play and it exacerbated that, or it coupled along with it. And what I want for people to know, one, not every concussion leads to this. It's not, all concussions are not created equal. But do watch when your child has a concussion. I think there's so many kids playing soccer and sports, and I know that happens, right? But follow the protocol, but then watch, because it's not immediate. You'll start to notice some changes in their behavior or their struggle. And a lot of times when there is an imbalance in the brain, and what I've learned through my story is that they automatically start self-medicating. And so we're talking about three different things. We're talking about brain health. Then we're talking about mental health disorders that are there that need attention and treatment. And then we're talking about addiction and substance use or alcohol use disorders that often follow that. They can be separate and stand alone. They don't need one or the other. Like, you don't need all these things to happen at the same time. You just happen to be dealing with all three at once. And as you were going through that timeline, one of the things that happens to families is that when they become adolescents, they also are dealing with adolescent behaviors where they're more impulsive. And that makes it really difficult emotionally to deal with them. And a lot of times we think this is a phase. They're being a rowdy teenager. Oh boy, we got, a kid that's really rebellious, but you don't realize there might be other things happening. I also want to tell parents that if you're dealing with your child experimenting with any drugs or alcohol, I know when I grew up, the age was 21, and the cool thing in high school is if you could get beer and drink and, alcohol from their parents' cabinet. And a lot of that is normal, I think. But today, it's not innocent. It is so deadly out there. And they pass around pills and drugs at parties like a bowl of candy. So if you aren't having conversations, please have conversations, because it's too available. You mentioned Bitcoin. I remember learning these words. Bitcoin is how they purchase them. The dark web is how they can buy them. I remember trying to control this, and they're literally sent in the mail and left on the doorstep. I mean, they don't have to go to some sketchy part of town. My learning curve on that topic, which we'll be doing an episode about, is huge, because I'm innocent. I see the good in people. I'd never know something was going on right under my nose. And so I was not equipped or prepared. But for kids in junior high and high school, have these conversations, watch their health, watch their self-esteem health, but watch their brain health. And you don't want to live in fear, but you were saying that instinct for you, a mother's instinct is our best friend. It's like, don't ignore that hit that something's off. Also, getting help. It's expensive. The treatment protocol is very difficult, but you have to be resourceful. You have to find a way. They have to have help. And all treatment is not created equal. The system isn't perfect, and there's way more people who need it than what exists in it. And it's not perfected. And so it's created what I call a silent epidemic upon us, of drug use and treatment. There's an article I was reading. First of all, 50 million Americans experienced a substance use disorder in 2023. 9% of those with co-occurring mental health issues got treated for both. And what you were talking about, Dawn, is they either treat the substance or they treat the mental health, but it's hard to find someone who can do what's called a dual diagnosis. Mm-hmm. Finding that treatment is even harder. And the mental health disorder itself rejects treatment. They don't want it. And I don't think anybody really wants that kind of experience and going into treatment. I think kids and adults with addiction issues really do have a level of denial and minimization of it, which comes with that says, I can handle it. But it's the longer you wait, the worse it gets. We have so many young people. There's young and adults that have suicidal thoughts every day. I think they're starting to notice social media's role in some of that because we've had some directly. But 1 in 20 adults, which is 13.2 million, had serious suicidal thoughts in the past year, and over 1 in 8 adolescents had serious suicidal thoughts in the past year. And it's like finding your way through a dark forest. You have to navigate it, and you've got to not give up, and you've got to draw strength from places that you don't know you have. When it's your child, especially, I feel like when it's your child, you just are so desperate to get them to be okay and have the help that they need. What did you do for you during that time, those years of trying to get help and thinking you find it and then finding out you didn't? And I hear your story, and you highlighted only a few of the moments that signified extreme trauma to your nervous system to experience these calls and finding him yourself. How have you held yourself together? How'd you do that?
Anything I could for me. I mean, I've been to Jenny's retreats, my faith in God. I have another spiritual advisor who I've been working with for years that helps me to really kind of see things differently on a multidimensional level, because I'll get so stuck in him not being here in the physical now. I'm going through that right now. One of the things his father and I didn't make it as a couple. However, even before all this started with John, we were starting to separate. Obviously, that could have some role in it too. Mm-hmm. I'm not dismissing that. But we were able to co-parent at such a level that I have a girlfriend who's a psychologist, and I've known since we were college roommates. And she's like, I've never seen anything like it. I try to teach it. She's like, I can't teach it. So even though he and I weren't together, we did have the strength together as parents. Mm-hmm. And we would lean on each other as we would go through these different phases. I have dear friends that have been going through, not just you, Jenny, but another girlfriend of mine, her son has been dealing, his original diagnosis with lead poisoning, that caused mental health issues. That's a whole other side of them. And I've watched him struggle with addiction. I do have another treatment center that she used for him that I would love to share. Mm-hmm. I will share it now before it goes right out of my head. This is called the Sylvia Brafman, Brafman, Mental Health Centers in Florida. And she's taken him everywhere too. He even actually had cannabis-induced psychosis, which, I mean, back in the day, I like you talked about having the alcohol. Like I tried pot twice and I was like terrible at it. So my girlfriend said, you're not allowed to do that again. but in two different situations, where they were like high school and then college, you're like, no, don't do that. But I didn't know it could get to the point where it could induce psychosis. Right. I had no idea. And that's what he's dealing with. So there's things like Jenny shared that you're like, I didn't know about the dark web. I didn't know, I was just like you, Jenny. It was like, okay, you get the alcohol from your older brother because he has an ID, right. You don't. And so like all of this stuff, and it is very readily available. I mean, I'm here in an affluent area and high schools are ridden with this problems.
It knows no socioeconomical boundary and no gender, no race. It's across the board and it's out of control.
Out of control. And when it's associated with, for me, it was education. I also had to educate myself and educate myself and educate myself because there is just, like you said, you could find the right facility, but it's not the perfect, and then what do you do next? And I needed it for my peace of mind as I was going through that as well. Right. And then just sometimes just screaming and yelling and going to the beach and just sitting there and crying. Yeah. All of that.
I have a quick question. I'm curious how your other children went through this journey, like how it affected them. Were they able to get through high school and dabble through that kind of stuff and not affect them?
So my oldest, he's 4 years older than John. And so when it really hit John, he was already out of the house. And, I take that back. He was there the first attempt. He was there. He had come back before he left. So he experienced that as well. So the trauma, both my oldest and my youngest are and probably because of all this, they are anti-alcohol. They are anti-drugs. They don't want anything to do with it. Like, not at all. Not at all. Now, I will have my occasional glass of wine. We did get to go to Korea and see Chris and his girlfriend and her family. I saw Chris have maybe one beer, maybe two, the whole time I was there. And she said, he'll occasionally have something, but he doesn't, it's not a big deal. I think for them, but even prior to that, he wasn't drinking. Like he just wasn't, that wasn't his thing. And he may have dabbled. I'm sure he did, but he just I never saw it be a problem. But to answer your question more specifically, Kristen, how it affected them. So Chris, again, I felt like he was a little bit removed from it. He did come back for John's celebration of life. They were here in the spring. He went back and he was having severe stress and anxiety where he couldn't eat. I think it's hitting him because I think when you're a bit removed from it, you're not in it, if that makes sense. And it's hard to kind of, it's like hearing like a friend lost their child or a friend lost their father or whatever. You're sad for them. And even though it's his brother, I think that's how he was experiencing it until he was in it, and I wanted to protect him. I prefer him to never go through it, but you can't do that.
Right.
Allison has had her own issues. My daughter, being the closest in age to him, she has epilepsy. So we went through during COVID. She was still having issues, deja vu moments, remembering, never quite passed out, but would have like those dizzy spells, and we couldn't figure out what was going on with her. All during COVID, I was dealing with this with her. She was diagnosed with epilepsy, but she also does, John was still going through his stuff, but she has her own anxiety and depression that we're treating as well. And then the little guy, I call him little, he's 6'1". I think he's 8 years younger, 6 years younger. Sorry. No, 4 years younger. Well, I'm making it longer than it is, but he seems like he is because he was always like out doing his own 4 years younger, but always out with his friends. I shielded him a lot. Mm-hmm. I won't lie, Kristen, I shielded him a ton. I was like anything I could keep, and I didn't want to keep it from him, but like the trauma pieces of it, I kept from him. But his experiences, everything, he doesn't want anything to do with alcohol either or anything. I mean, he was dating a girlfriend for 6 years and she's like, nope, never seen him touch it. Like he won't do it. He's more athletic. And I think when John passed, he has a new journey. Like he wants to climb mountains now. And we did have an issue where he almost didn't make it out of the Grand Canyon this summer because of the heat and had to go get help with the station rangers or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's kind of like that he's like going to take it to the edge, but I worry that I still think they need to continue to have therapy. Allison has seen someone, but in Korea, they don't believe in therapy. So we've got to figure out another alternative for Christopher. It's very interesting. They don't offer it. I don't say believe in it. That's the wrong word. They don't offer it. And to talk to my youngest to do it, he's like, "No, I'm good." So
he's working it out on the mountain.
He's working it out on the mountain. So I'm letting him be for right now. But we talk about it. I ask him, you know, how you feeling? I'm okay, Mom. But they know. I'm not hiding my feelings, you know, even going through it. That's the other thing I would say. Cry, scream. Yeah. Get through it, you know, have your feelings. Don't hide them.
Teach them how to feel it, right? You have to show them how to feel it, but not make them responsible for it. A lot of that is, I'm going to feel this and it's my job to work my way through it. So they know, because they don't want you to hurt, but it does affect. It was a good question, Kristen, because it does impact everyone in the family, and it doesn't impact any one person in the family the same way. It's
yeah. So I think Jenny knows there's someone in my family that I had to watch go through that. And it was hard. I was a little removed because it was a blended family and I wasn't always in that house, but it was really hard. And thankfully she's been sober for over 20 years. Like, we are so proud of her. She's amazing. That's awesome. And she listens to this podcast. So
that's awesome.
Then yay, we get a shout out for 20 years is great. So that's hard work. It's hard work for them to get through that.
It's scary as a sibling to watch it. I mean, it started when she was in middle school, and I'm probably about 4 months younger than her, and just watching it and like, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to do that. Of course, when I got to college, I tried it, but
yeah. But again, it's what Jenny said. It's still a normal thing. We're still, you know, young adults trying to try things out. But when you see it, you're kind of like, I don't want that. And I also will recommend to everyone in the family therapy. I did go through therapy too. So I'm not, but these other things were much more, I don't know, because of my spirituality, they helped me a lot more. And I'm not saying you just need to find that right therapist that works for you too. Yeah.
100%.
One of the other things as a parent to also, I'm going to chime in on this particular thing, because what we learned with my son, both Dawn and I have our son's name is John, and my John, when he began experimenting with alcohol and then marijuana, and I think it advanced to his best friend's parents' medicine cabinet had some Oxycontin in it. And he said, I found it. That opiate was it for him. But what we learned is if they don't introduce substances to the development of their brain, the longer that they wait before they get there, if they're 20 when they first try an opiate for any reason, they have a much less traumatic journey and a better chance of getting out of it. And John was 14 or 15 when he began and was in it before he was 18 years old. He was already in the opioid epidemic, and it makes a difference. If they're going to dabble, like, tell them, don't do it before your brain gets to this stage where it's like, wait and try these substances if you're going to. And the dilemma that I'm listening to, because it's like one of the things they say is just keep your kids busy. You want them to have good self-esteem. You want them to be making good friends, good grades, good social life with good kids, but keep your eye on them. You know, I mean, just, you got to watch, because they just it's everywhere. And one of the things that is a good statistic is getting them into athletics, you know, let them play the sports. And when they're training, they're working out, and they want to excel in a sport, they're already in a mind state of, I don't want to put something not healthy in my body. You know, I don't want to use those kind of things. It helps with that conversation. But sports is where they can also have head injuries. My John also had a traumatic brain injury playing basketball in middle school, and he was very fast. He went for a layup. He got kind of tackled by one of the other players, fell to the floor and skidded backwards, and they didn't have a pad on the cinder block wall in this gym. And I'll remember the sound of that thud. He went down and the whole place was just silent. And I just couldn't breathe for about 10 seconds. And then his coaches were over there and we had to take him right to the hospital. But again, they found the traumatic brain injury. Mm. So take care of that. Take care of their brain health. Kristen has shared on podcasts, but also she's gone through, not from any of drugs or sports injuries, but she inherited a disorder that ended up causing a brain bleed for her that was very traumatic and long healing, still in the process of healing. And it's been 2 years. Can't believe it. And so, it's like really being thankful for the brains that we have when they're healthy, but understanding that when we see moods, I think that society has a distinction between behavior and then the physical body. And we don't understand that in the brain, they both exist, they coexist. And a brain that is imbalanced is never going to allow you to have a life that's balanced. If your brain is not balanced, your life will have something happening that isn't working. And we treat it with behavioral approaches, which is part of it because they have to learn how to cope with that, but it's not separate. And I think we see that where kids would struggle with attention deficit and they're being punished for behavior they can't help. And so we have to start having these conversations early on. That ends up affecting self-esteem. And so all these things start happening. And we as parents have to really educate ourselves. Educate yourself about what's out there and don't be afraid. I would be so afraid of offending someone by saying, I think we need to not go to that person's house. If you see something, pay attention to what are your instincts, And I remember one of my other sons was in grade school and I took him to his best friend's house. And when we dropped him off at the door, I had the worst feeling about his safety. And I called them and said, could I just ask Ben if I think he forgot something? Let me see, and I wanted to, and they were playing video games and he was oblivious. And I just didn't feel good. And I didn't want to insult them. I didn't want to be rude, but I didn't feel my child was safe. And you have to make those decisions as a parent on a normal day, in second grade, I had to make that call. But this journey takes you into that kind of decision with life and death. It's such a hard journey. And you mentioned your faith. I feel like my faith was strong and then it went strong times 100. My courage. I still say that the journey helped to heal so much that wasn't healed in me because I had to in order to go the distance, with it. So I think our takeaway of this episode is just paying attention to all the signals and all the indicators for good brain health. Don't carry a stigma. If there is a mental health issue, address it. We've got to normalize it. I think every single person has a reason to do their work. And we talk about that, the work on this podcast, because there isn't an area of our life that isn't going to have something for us to heal and improve. And that's how we grow in our strength and in the strength of our community. As we continue Dawn's story and journey and what she's learned and how she's continued to put one foot in front of the other, we're going to talk about not just if this is you or someone you know, but also we're going to talk about how to support others. This is, to me, a community that we need support and we need it in the right way. And there were so many things, and I'm going to ask this at the end of every episode, but when you look back, this will be our closing question for this one, but when you look back over those particular experiences that you've shared with us today, was there anything that you could say helped? And then were there things that people did when they mean well, but it really didn't help?
Very good question. I think what helped, and it's kind of interesting that you just came up with that question, because it was going through my head that all the family stepped up, and I'll go into his journey across country, but like, his aunt, his dad's sister stepped in, and my mother stepped in, and, friends would step in, and that's so crucial when you talk about community, not only, us as immediate family, and we were not a solid unit at that time,
right,
to have that support of others. Now, the other time that didn't help, and some neighbors are great, some were not so great. And there would be comments, and there would be this, and there would be that. And those things, I'm like, you never know. This is the one thing that I've gotten from all of this before, the hard thing that happened, was we never know what anybody's going through at any given time. We have no idea. And to be kind. And there was things that were said that were just so unkind. And I'm like, you have no idea. You absolutely have no idea. And at first I was angry. And then I realized I just had to forgive. I did not have the energy or the time. I had to focus on my family and my son. So,
yeah. The energy it takes to forgive, it is a takeaway. It distracts you when you're dealing with people that aren't kind, and you just don't know. And they can be the most random person, but you're raw when you're going through these things, when you're worried about your child the way that you had to be. You don't know what people are carrying. We don't know what they just left. I remember having to so many times talk about your other kids, that, to Kristen's point, like, what are they doing during all this? And I remember having this huge, horrific event. And at the same time, my youngest son was going to interview to get into the high school he was hoping to get into. And it was a really big deal for him. And I had to get dressed and put a smile on my face and shield him from that and say, let's go. And you just left this thing that people can't imagine even exists, much less, in our family. It's like the happy family looked great, but no, we had stuff. And I just remember how much energy it took, to put that best face forward, and then running into someone who made some just rude. They were just, someone in the office was being very rude, and it stung worse. It was like, I don't have the energy to put my armor on. We're all just trying to get through something really hard, and everybody's something really hard has different variants and different degrees of hardness. And we have to find a way to support and be kind and understanding, and not quick to judge and throw nasty comments. It's very troubling how easy it is to be unkind and insensitive. It's out there, but we are getting better. I do feel like we're seeing progress in that. Maybe I'm just so focused on being it myself that it feels like people are being kind back now. But at the time there was a lot, and people try to offer advice and they mean well. A lot of times the advice they would offer, it's like they have no understanding of what it's like. Well, just get them help, well, yeah, that requires 10 years of research, still checking on that one. But yeah. So if you are listening and know, if you're going through this, first of all, you're not alone. Sadly, there's so many moms and so many family members, wives and husbands and daughters and sisters and people, kind of doing this alone, because especially with substance use, but also with mental health disorders, there's still a stigma out there. I've enjoyed this year's Olympics because there was a lot more emphasis on their mental health as part of their training. And so much of that came from some of them being like, I talk to my therapist every day while I'm here. And I think we're starting to see we all need to take away the stigma. It's not a sign of weakness, but strength. And so
I keep thinking, Jenny, it's interesting, like when you go through something that's so traumatic or so significant, you are put into a situation where you really have to use tools like grace and forgiveness Otherwise, you're not going to get, I mean, you're like almost forced to, but like you have to make sure you find a way to use them to get through, where people on a day-to-day who are just doing whatever, like those are just kind of words out there.
Yeah.
And it's like you're on this path. It's like, oh, how do I really use grace? How do I really use forgiveness? Because that's what's going to help me get through this.
Yeah.
I guess I'm curious, are there any other tools when I say those words that you had to use to navigate?
Peace, in my own inner peace.
Yeah.
I meditated before, but like, did I really meditate before? I mean,
right.
That's
like
a whole other topic.
When you're really in something.
To take those moments for me as well. Like I always, as a mom, I was always trying to do that, but even more so that those moments of peace are so much more. And I think we'll talk about that in subsequent episodes here, but that's my safety line. Like if I don't have that peace, I feel like I can go out of control and spin out of control. Yeah. And so that's another tool that I know they talk about it and, this and that. And no, it's real. Again, you got to dig deep and have that one be real too.
Right.
And that inner peace is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Very much so. Well, Dawn, thank you for this first episode. And we want to invite all of you to listen to the second episode where she continues her story. And then a third one where we are going to really explore the topic of grief. So a lot more to come. And whatever you are going through or whatever you are struggling with or whatever you have had to survive that you feel like you had to do it by yourself, find your community, find the people around you that bring you that comfort and buoy you up, and know that you don't have to do it alone. You have to do the work, but you don't have to do it by yourself. And I hope that some of the things we've shared has helped you with the awareness of how quickly things can change and take a drastically different direction, and some within and some not in your control, and how important it is that you find the strength either way, that you maintain that sense of peace and forgiveness, because at the end of the day, that's what you live with. And so we will talk more about that in upcoming episodes. So go out. Please practice kindness and compassion and patience, and do your due diligence and support someone. Ask them. If you don't know what they need, don't assume you do. But if you don't know, just say, I don't really know what to say and I don't know what you need, but I want you to know I'm here and I care. That right there will mean the world to someone who is seen and heard in their suffering. And whatever you do to reach out and whatever words you choose, please do so with love. Take care. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you found a spark of wisdom to carry with you, and maybe even a deeper invitation to heal and grow and transform through your own beautiful story. Or maybe this episode made you think of someone who could use encouragement. And if so, I hope you will share it with them. If you'd like to learn more about working with me or attending one of my healing retreats, coaching programs, and other offerings, you can visit my website at jennyaiello.com or email me directly at jenny@jaiello.com. You'll find all the links in the show notes. If today's episode touched you, it would mean the world if you would leave a review or share it with someone who might need it, or just reach out and let me know how it landed for you. I'd love to hear from you. I'm building something special here. Real stories, real life, real connection. One episode, one heart, and one story at a time. As always, with love. Oh, and this is the legal message, but mostly a message from my heart, and I just need to share this with you right now. Please know this podcast is offered solely for educational and entertainment purposes. If you find yourself triggered due to anything that was shared in this podcast, please seek professional help. This podcast is not intended to be a substitute for mental health services. While I am a professional life coach, I am not a psychotherapist, nor am I a mental health clinician. So if you are struggling emotionally, please seek help, because you matter, you are important, and most of all, you are worthy of doing this work. the work that leads you to a better and healthier place. Okay? All right. Thank you. And please always make enough time to take care of yourself and do so with love.